Hi! I'm so excited for this video because my new sketchbooks are finally here. I was running up to this room bringing all of my art supplies so that I can test them. The sketchbook I currently use is coated. It's bleed proof. It looks like this. I just made a new series, different type of paper, uncoated, much thicker. Let's get into a comparison. I barely started this video and I'm already covered in ink. This is what happens when you fly with fountain pens. I recently just got back from a trip, so these were probably compressed by the air on the plane. You just have to clean it. It's fine after that. This is my current sketchbook. It is quite beat up from all the travel and all the sketchbooking I have done in the past couple of weeks. I got a new one so that you guys could see what the mint condition one looks like. If you're not familiar with the current sketchbook that I have, it is 170 GSM. I already forgot all the dimensions and stuff. Let me pull it up on my website. There's 176 pages. That's 88 spreads total. It's 5.7 inches. It's 180 GSM. What I like about this book is that it is bleed proof. So if you're using alcohol markers, paint markers, it doesn't bleed through. I add crazy amounts of paint and the next page is not affected at all. I also go ham with my junk journaling, so this is quite a sturdy book. New sketchbook, much thicker, same number of pages. The main difference is that this paper is slightly thicker, it's uncoated, and I want to see what different types of material look like in the 2 pages. I'm most curious about how it applies to fountain inks. I'm also going to go over some of my favorite other materials like alcohol markers, paint markers, and pencil. These will probably be on my website mid of this month, maybe end of October. We'll see. I need to take pictures and put them on my website, which always takes me so long to do. Let me just do this aerial view so you guys can see very quickly what the differences are. So again, my sketchbook is this one. It's much thicker right now just because I've added so much to it in terms of junk journaling. But just for reference, this is my book. It comes with this band. There is an intro page, and then on the back there is a little pocket if you want to add stickers and, you know, little junk things that you might collect as you travel. This one is the new one. The paper is uncoated and I feel like you can feel the difference when you open it immediately. This one is much smoother, but I feel like you won't know the difference until you start actually using materials on it. This one, the strap is on the inside just because I think I didn't want to stretch it completely because it's so thick. Here's the difference side by side. It's quite thick. It is like 75% this one compared to this. The design is the same. It's just the paper type that's different. So when I do this test, I'll go one by one per material type. I think the first thing I want to do is test alcohol marker. Sorry, my page is a little wonky, and that's because I recently pressed these flowers into my book and I forgot to dry the flowers, so they made my sketchbook super wet. But because the book is quite durable, it didn't mess up any of my other pages. It just made some of these pages a little bit crinkly, but it's still usable, so I'm just gonna go with that. When I first made these sketchbooks, I used them primarily for alcohol markers. The brand that I really like is Ohuhu. I didn't use them like how most people use alcohol markers, and I think the main reason why is because I just don't know how to use alcohol markers. But as I started using it more, I realized that most people are using alcohol markers to blend things, while I was using alcohol markers to create blocks of colors. So I'm gonna do both of that today. Oh my gosh, my fingers look so crazy from the ink. Just ignore that. I'm just gonna do some swatches over here before I get into the meat of it. In terms of shading, I'm gonna use this and just kind of show you guys how I would normally shade. All right, here is my little persimmon doodle. What I like about how alcohol marker works on this paper is that you can add this kind of like paint layering to it. The colors don't necessarily blend with one another, but they just kind of layer on top. And you can see that most prominently here when I'm blending. It's not a super smooth blend. It does bleed into one another a bit over time as it dries, but you can still see the blocks of color. All right, let me switch over to this book very quickly now. I'm gonna go somewhere over here because it will just be easier for me to start on this page. You know, when it's just kind of awkward writing in the start of a book, so I'm gonna do it over here. Whoa. Okay, already I see a huge difference in the colors. So in the original book, this green is so much lighter than this one. You can see this green is much more, I guess it's more saturated. This orange is kind of similar, but even then this one's darker. This orange is much more neon color here in this book, versus the same orange feels a bit, I guess it's more saturated, but it's not as bright and neon. I'm gonna try some shading. Okay, already I see the shading for this one. It blends much better. So this is what I would expect a typical alcohol marker user would be using the markers for on this type of paper. You can see the differences. Like this one is so choppy because the paint is layering on top versus actually blending with one another. All right, let's check the bleed. Okay, so it does bleed through compared to this one. You see in this book, you don't get that bleed. So yeah, just something to consider. I think this one is much more forgiving for the blending, but if you're trying to look for something that doesn't bleed, I wouldn't recommend this one. This brown is so much darker. See the same brown? This one and this paper is much darker. So it's clear to me that this uncoated book is gonna absorb colors just much more.
Hopefully I can edit this video in a way where the color really shines. By the way, if you want to learn more about video editing, you can check out more tutorials on Skillshare, which is the sponsor of this video. Skillshare is the largest creative online learning community with thousands of classes from a variety of experts and industry professionals. I'm still trying to get better at color grading and editing my videos, so I've been going on Skillshare to find classes. The class I've been looking over is Color Correction by Hollis. I like that the lessons break down the different aspects of color grading. There's other categories in the main menu too, like acrylic painting, drawing, and character design. Skillshare is a great resource if you want to learn something new or just want to check out a quick tutorial. The first 500 people to use my link in the description or to scan this QR code will receive 1 month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today.
Okay, so let's take a closer look. This one, like I said, the colors, they're laying on top. So you can kind of see my brush strokes. They stay the same as how I applied them. Here, the ink is going to blend and bleed a bit more. So you don't see the paint strokes as I have put them on. This one, I think, if you're using alcohol markers the way they were intended to be, blended together, this is what I would recommend. Versus this one, the layering effect is very different from what you would expect. But for me personally, I actually like this, but it's because, like I said, I don't really know how to use alcohol markers. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. Here's the bleeding. Okay, let's move on to paint markers. I'm using Shuttle Art acrylic markers. These are probably my favorite brand for paint markers. They're very easy to use. Sometimes I just don't know how to use paint markers. I get kind of like paint marker paralysis. We're going to wing it. And I think recent things I've been doing with paint markers is drawing these like little scribble characters. Oh, I did this one with paint markers. This is with paint markers. So let me try to replicate something like this, and that will help me determine what I'm going for. I'll make it really small. One thing I'll comment about this paper type and paint markers is that when I'm scribbling and applying lots of paint using lots of layers like this, I don't feel like the paper is going to give out. Sometimes when paper is super porous, it feels like applying a bunch of paint layers will make the paper rip, but I don't get that sense whenever I'm using this sketchbook. It's really smooth when I'm using it. It doesn't really bend the paper unless I'm applying lots and lots of ink, but even then, like, you saw the amount of ink that I just applied, it doesn't make my paper crinkly at all. So I do like that about this paper. Okay, I got a little too into that painting. Let me show you it up close. Yeah, I like that acrylic marker paintbrushes applies really smoothly. There's no kind of warping. You can layer a lot and the paper doesn't rip. Let's try it with the other paper now. Ooh, I will say coloring over a large surface of area like how I'm doing here feels kind of nice in this paper. I don't know how to describe it, but I can show you guys what I mean by it feels different. So if I'm scribbling in a large area like this, you see how smooth it is? It feels really smooth. I can see some layers of paint, but because I'm going to paint over this and scribble on top, it's not a big deal. I think it's more opaque. So let me show you. That's with this paper, with the coated paper. It creates this like wet feeling. And if you don't have enough ink, it can get kind of washed out. But this one is just opaque. It's not really wet per se, it's just more opaque. Okay, I thought showing that would help visualize it a bit better, but it didn't. I think visually it kind of looked the same. You just have to try it out, I guess. It's not as wet when I apply it on this paper. It actually feels like applying the layers, they look more opaque, but maybe that will change when it dries. Overall, for both papers though, the paint markers are very consistent. They layer really well. Even this paper doesn't feel like it's gonna rip. I think because it's so thick, it takes the paint really well. I think the issue sometimes with paint markers like Posca, I think sometimes it feels like it's gonna rip and it's gonna bend the paper, but yeah, I'm layering a lot and I don't get the sense it's doing that here. Comparison wise, I don't know. I feel like the feeling of it hitting the paper was different just naturally because the papers are different. But other than that, I think the textures are very similar. This one does feel like it's layered a bit differently on top. Kind of like the alcohol marker, it layers and it doesn't like blend. So this one you can see like the paint is layering. It makes this like little, I don't know, stippling effect. This one feels a little bit more blended, not as layered on. Yeah, is that easy to see the side by side? But I feel like color wise and application wise, it's very similar. Oh, now that this has dried, you can see now. So see the yellow, it's a lighter color. It's very easier to see how the paint, when you swish around and if you don't have enough paint, it makes this like kind of, it's not completely opaque, but the yellow here is more opaque. I switched it around and I don't get as much white as I do on this one. Yeah, I think that's the main difference is if you're coloring a larger area, then it might create that kind of like transparent effect. Okay, let's try pencil next. I have two here. Maybe I should actually try with a traditional pencil, but do I have any on hand? Oh, I do. Okay, I have this 6B Tombow drafting pencil. So I have these three. The differences are this is like a regular pencil. I guess it's not super regular since it's like a specific graphite, but it will do. And then I have two mechanical ones. One is just regular color and then the other is blue. And I actually like using the blue one more because I don't know, it's fancy, no rules. So let's start with this one. I'm using my coated paper. Works pretty well. I think the one thing I want to call out though is if you're trying to erase, it might not work as well. So let me go find an eraser. Actually, am I tripping? Maybe erasers are fine. Maybe I'm just using the wrong kind of pencil. All right, so gosh, I haven't used pencil in a hot minute. I usually just use mechanical pencils these days. Can you blend? Yeah, you can blend. It doesn't feel like regular paper though, just because of the coatedness. I don't know. Pencil artist, what do you think? Does it blend super well? Okay, I'm moving on to mechanical. Let me do the regular color first. Okay, it erases fine. Let's try some smudging. Also fine. All right. Well, why did I think my sketchbooks were not great with pencil? Am I crazy? Okay, here is the blue mechanical pencil. Maybe it's this. No, this blue looks great. False advertising. I always thought pencil wasn't great in this book, but maybe I just didn't know how to use my own material. Or is it the type of eraser I'm using? This eraser works fine. Yeah, I will say because the paper is coated, it's just not gonna feel the same like regular paper. So just keep that in mind. But pencil works great. And you see the smudging. So yeah, there's the pencil test. Now let me try it on the uncoated paper. This one is gonna feel much more like regular paper. I feel like the way I'm drawing is already different. The way the pencil hits this paper, it just feels so much more natural. The other paper felt like my pencil was kind of gliding on top and I can't really sketch properly, but this one it feels much more natural. Oh yeah. Wait, you can see the difference with the shading already. Okay, so here's the shading on this one, and then here's the shading on the other one. It's like not as smooth. Yeah, the eraser works fine. And then let me use mechanical. Oh yeah, mechanical feels so good on this paper. Okay, so my consensus is that the coated paper, it works fine. It's bleed proof. I think that's what I really loved about it. Pencil works fine. It's just the feel is gonna be very different. The feel on this paper, it feels so good. Like, if you're a traditional artist, this is probably what you're going for, is this kind of paper. The other sketchbook is really nice for other types of material, but I think if you don't really use pencil, then the other sketchbook is probably fine, like me. I don't really use pencil, but if you are primarily a pencil artist, maybe this one is better. Am I in my cat era? I'm just trying to draw Nori, our long hair black cat. Oh, the blue looks different though. The blue looks darker on this paper, and then the blue is much more saturated and bright on this paper. I kind of like that. All right, well, that is my paper analysis. Next is my favorite medium, which is fountain pens and fountain inks. Okay, I'm choosing these two colors for a few reasons. This one has a shimmer, so we're gonna see how glitter and shimmer will look like on the paper. This one changes colors. It has like a sheen to it, so we're gonna check that out. And then I'm just gonna also use my TWSBI diamond because these will be dip and this one is fountain pen. Okay, let's start a new page. I'm gonna go over here. Right off the bat, you could just see how juicy that is. I've always loved that about TWSBI, and I've always loved that about this sketchbook, is that I can get like really juicy lines and they feel so smooth on this paper. I just don't feel that way about any other paper that I'm drawing on, so that's what I love about this sketchbook. And it takes the ink really well. Again, no bleed, and you can see the pools of ink there, but it's not spilling over, which I really like. This is Deception's Pass by Wet Pen. I got it from a lovely artist that dropped it by during Small Art Mart when I was tabling there in Seattle. It's sold out online right now. I'm really sad because I really want this ink. Okay, I'm kind of scared that this paper is gonna bleed. So if I draw it over here, it's gonna bleed over to my Nori drawings. So let me just do it here. Bleeding? Not yet. Yeah, it's not as juicy as you can see. I have to apply way more lines so that I can get more ink to come out, and I can also see it like pilling up the paper. Okay, don't know if you've already noticed, but the color is very different on this paper versus the coated paper. And this is what I was most excited about when I knew that the new paper was coming in. So right off the bat, for this one, the ink has dried now. These pools where the ink has darkened the areas, you can see this ink in particular, it has a really nice like shading value. So the lighter blue, you can see the lighter blue here, and then there's like darker values. That is the extent to what you see on this paper. What you see on this paper is like much more variation in the color. It's not just blue, there's like greens in here, there's blues as well. Where the ink pools, it's darker, but it also changes colors. Like I can see some greens in the dark areas, but then blues in the lighter area. It's same ink, but different color variations. So I think that was one of the appeals for me when I was getting this sketchbook, was that different inks might turn out different colors. Let's try it with the other inks as well. I'm gonna pull out my dip pen from Kakimori and get some water. Look at this little Shiba mold I made. Tail broke off, but I was like, what if I use it as a pen holder? Kind of cute. Let's go with Sailor Mano first because there's no shimmer, so I don't want any kind of contamination to happen. This one should have variations of different colors, so the sheen will be just variant. Look how much ink this paper can take. Like you see the pooling of the ink? It's crazy. Coloring is very easy on this paper. It feels like it just glides, and I love that. Okay, while that dries, let me do it on the other paper. I don't get as thick of a stroke when I'm using it on this paper. It's much more precise, but I think that's nice if you're writing. Like I can get really thin lines. Coloring is not as smooth on this paper, and then the Kakimori feels like it's dragging a little bit more. So you can see this line here, that's created from the paper. So I'm applying a lot of ink, which it's taking, but I think I can see potential for the paper like pilling. Ooh, it's also creating this like bleeding effect. Do you see the edges? They're not as smooth, so it looks like it's bleeding over my line art a bit. It definitely gives a more traditional look. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry. Now we can go on to the Dominant Industry Early Spring with the shimmer. Don't forget to shake your shimmer. Shake your shimmer. Does that roll off the tongue? So this color is really interesting because I got this in New York when I was at Yosaka Stationery, and I saw someone else trying out the ink on their notebook, and then when I tried it on my notebook, the color was completely different. So I'm excited to see what it looks like on this paper and to show you guys the color variations. Okay, I ended up getting a little bit too carried away from drawing with the fountain pens. The dark color, I believe, is Hound of Baskerville. That one was drawn with a beak nib. So the beak nib, this one we actually got specifically grinded by a nib meister, which is so crazy in Japan. It allows for broader strokes. And then my all-time favorite is the TWSBI Eco, which has the broad nib. I'm just into the bigger nibs just because I think my line weight and strokes, my style is very much all line weight. So I think the bigger the lines, the more comfortable I am. All right, I think these have all dried now, so let me show you guys the color variations for the other fountain inks that I tried out. So we'll start in order. The first is the Sailor Manual Sakura color. So on my paper, you can see some color variations. There's like a pink orange and like a light pink color. It does this really cool gradient effect. The color is very light. It applied really smoothly on this paper. Here's the color on the other paper. It's much more vibrant. You get this like light color going into this vibrant orange pink color. I think from this angle you can really see the color difference. So see how it's light on the coated paper and then it's darker on the uncoated paper. I really like the color variations on this paper as well. Next, we have the Dominant Industry Early Spring color. You can see the shimmer here. It's so nice. I like to think of it as like unicorn blood from Harry Potter. It has a silver color base and then the shimmer, it looks kind of purplish here on my paper. All right, here it is on this paper. It's much darker, so you see the comparison. This one's light. This one's darker. This one you can get some green variations. I see some green in there. I see some blue as well. Shimmer seems to be much more contrasted here. I think because I have like light variations and then it goes into dark. It feels more purple here too. So between the two colors that I tested, I think this one has the most variation from this paper. Here's Hound of Baskerville. What I like about this one is it's a really subtle sheen. So this color is like a blood red color, but then the sheen is green. So you can see the green there where the ink pools. I think it needs time to dry a little bit more, but there is a lot of green that I'm seeing. So here it is on this paper. I feel like I don't see as much green. I just see pools of dark red. There's like a little bit of green, just a little bit, but I see more of the green on this paper. I don't know if the camera picks it up, but I can see it with my naked eye. And then this one is a recent favorite of mine. It's Bungu Box's Mandarin color. It has really nice shading values. So you got like a light orange into a dark orange. It is similar in this other book that I have. Here is this color. So I would say this one is more similar than the other ones with like sheen. I guess the shading inks, like the orange, is samesies. Okay, well, that concludes my comparison for all of the materials. What did you guys think? Which one do you think you would be more prone to using? I think personally, if I'm just traveling and on the go, I feel like I'll stick with the coated because I like that I get everything that I want, like the bleed proof part of it, but I can still use other things and I'm so used to the glidingness of the TWSBI and inks on this paper. But I will say I'm obsessed with the color variations that you get from the uncoated paper. There's just something about being able to see the entire range of the colors that's really appealing, but I'm not a huge fan of the bleeding. Oh, but I will say something that I do really like about this paper is it's probably better for stamping. So if you're traveling to places where you can collect stamps, I would recommend the uncoated because sometimes when I'm getting stamps on this paper, it kind of smears because it coated and so it's like repelling the stamp almost. Like the stamp isn't very clear because the ink was smudging everywhere. We can probably test it right now. So let me stamp this book and you'll see what I mean. Oh my god, so cute. Let me try it on this. Oh my gosh, wait, side note, that's so crazy. I think the flower did that to my ink. Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. This is the same ink, Deception Pass. I was using it here and then I think the flower added water and it made it like lighter. That's so cool. Okay, anyways, other things I need to experiment with. I don't know if me stamping this proved anything, honestly. It's more like a feeling. I think you guys just have to try both papers to know what I mean. It's like a feeling. Okay, anyways, yeah, there's pros and cons to both. I think for the uncoated pencil, definitely. It just feels so much better. But yeah, if you're not really a pencil user, then you can get away with coated one. It works just as well. Like you can see here. It's just the feeling. Like I said, the feeling is different, even with the stamps. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that comparison video. I was so excited to get the new sketchbooks in. There's so many in my garage right now. I'm probably gonna list them on my website soon. Let me know if there's anything else you guys want me to try. I think in the future, I do want to try gouache and watercolor in this paper. We'll see how that goes. Thanks for always watching my videos and shenanigans with me. I hope to see you guys next time. I post every Monday, 12 p.m. PST, and I read all your comments and I try to respond to each and every one of them. So leave a comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you so much. Okay, bye. Oh my god, I can't get this on. There you go. Okay, bye for real.